Okay, today we'd like to show you how to replace the bypass frame in a Keystone, Palladian, or Fireview stove. Parts are a little bit different between the models for the Fireview and the Keystone Palladian, but the procedure is basically the same. So you're going to start by removing the scoop from underneath the combustor itself. If you've got the stainless steel scoop, just pull the pins and slide it out through the loading door. If you've got the cast iron scoop, there would be a single bolt holding the scoop in place closest to the loading door. So you would remove that bolt and then remove the cast iron scoop and screen assembly. So this is the bypass frame, and it basically frames the opening for the bypass cover. And it's held in place with two bolts, and these bolts go up through the combustor pan, and on the top side you'd be able to get a little bit of penetrating liquid down onto the threads to make removal. Okay, so before you begin to take your bypass frame apart, the bolts that hold it in place come up through the combustor pan. We've got the top of our Keystone removed here, but you could see them through the flue exit or the open cover plate for access to the inside of the stove. So these are the bolts that hold that bypass frame in place. And if you can get some penetrating liquid down from the top onto those threads, it'll make removal that much easier. So you're going to need a 1/2-inch wrench or a socket to remove the bolts that hold the bypass frame in place. And it's just the two bolts. Now there is a gasket in the bypass frame area that will come apart when you pull the frame out. There's a gasket right here. So you'll be replacing the gasket at the same time as you replace the bypass frame. So once the frame is out, clean up any residual furnace cement or gasket material that sticks there. And basically it's out with the old and in with the new. So you just pop your new frame in, line up the holes, and get the bolt started. Stop there. So we're just tightening our hardware for the bypass frame here. And all of the stove models, the front lip is an extension off the main part of the frame. So that always goes towards the front. Okay, so now we're going to replace the gasket. We're going to do that from up above. Okay, so we've got our bypass frame installed, and we are now going to replace the gasket that the bypass cover sits down into. It's going to be easiest to remove the lift guide from the top of the bypass cover, just so you can give yourself a little bit more space to work with inside the stove. And again, we've removed the top of this one just for the video's sake, so you'll be working in tight quarters, you know, either through the rear of the stove or down through the top. And what you want to do is lift up the bypass cover. Sorry. You wouldn't be able to open it all the way, but this will give you an idea of where that gasket sits. And basically, you're going to have some liquid gasket glue that's going to go around the little trough that the gasket sits in. And then the gasket just gets pressed into it. And it's a 1/2-inch diameter gasket. We can supply you with that. And it just gets pressed down into the glue. This is going to give you a little bit of a better seal between the bypass cover and the frame itself. You might as well. Okay, we've got our gasket tucked right in there, and now we're just going to put our bypass lift guide back on, and just the two bolts hold it in place. And then on the inside of the firebox, the last thing to do would be to put your scoop back in place, and then you can enjoy your stove.